Hey everybody, it's been longer than I thought it was since I'd post another video. A lot going on with my pending legal case, and pretty much every time I sat down to try to start a video, the phone would ring with something to do with that, and I'd be on it for a couple hours. So that's moving rather quickly, and I'll be able to share some very detailed aspects about that in the next couple weeks. But today, what I wanted to talk about was the narcissistic family dynamics, like what it's like to be a black sheep, not only of your immediate family, but your extended family as well. And specifically in a town that seems to enable that. Like basically, having grown up with not only a family like that, but in an area where that type of behavior, that type of narcissistic behavior is either not just like allowed it, they make excuses for it, they enable it and basically tell you that you're crazy. And I want to do a video to basically say, no, it's not you. And once you get out, you'll realize that, yeah, it really was the area. They try to hide that from you because they want to keep you miserable. So this video is going to delve into that. There's going to be some INFJ aspects, but this video is not just for INFJs. Like I said, being one, there's going to be a little bit about intuition here and there, but this is for anyone who was the black sheep or the scapegoat of their family. I'm going to give some specifics from my situation and then just talk some broader topics on it as well. So, in my family, I grew up in the suburbs of Philly. And from a very early age, I knew I was the black sheep of my family because from a young age, I didn't just like fall in line and accept the status quo and the good old boys network. That is kind of an INFJ thing. We don't just blindly accept the status quo, and being idealists, we're like, ooh, this can change and it'll be better for everybody, so why don't we do that? And we don't like platitudes, like it is what it is. But the area I grew up in was very traditional, very corrupt, riddled with nepotism and cronyism, as the state of Pennsylvania is as a whole, because it operates on a outdated township-based system as opposed to a county government-based system, meaning that like police and fire, for example, each little township has their own, and it's filled with nepotism and corruption, and the same families have been running it for generations instead of consolidating it into one county department where you can have specialized units and paid firefighters, things like that, like every other state did after World War II. But hey, no, it's this way because that's just the way it's supposed to be because corruption good. Yeah, that's something I've literally heard from my family. It's not corruption when Chester County does it. Apparently, they're above the law. That's how strong the tribalism is within them. But growing up a black sheep in a family like this, there's usually the queen bee narcissist. And in my case, that is my mom's older sister, who they basically worship like a queen. They will never tell her she's wrong. She can straight up, make up information, pull things out of her ass, and the other boomers and even some of the Gen Xers will discuss it afterwards and say how wrong she was. But no one, for some reason, will tell this woman that she's wrong to her face. Like, basically, if it comes out of her mouth, they take it as true. She has infallibility that makes the Pope jealous. And there's so many, double standards are a big part of it. Like, for example, as many INFJs probably have faced in their life, and you've seen it happen even on TV with fiction INFJs, they love to try to label us as mentally ill. Why? Well, basically because our integrity and our sense of honesty scares them because, we hold ourselves to such a high standards. We expect similar out of other people and we'll call out corruption and double standards whenever we see it. We're not tribalists. We're just not. We don't like that. But in the case of my family, they've been trying to label me most of my life, and given the career path I took, getting into emergency services, I've had numerous full-on psych workups over the years with multiple written exams, intensive interviews, polygraphs, like you name it, I've been done. And FBI profilers have had a go at me, and yeah, didn't find anything. Right? You would think that would get them off my back, but no, no, because they just know. It's their power. It's the power of the narcissistic baby boomer. I just know. And if I say it, it is true. So let it be written, so let it be done. They actually say that. Okay. And, that's basically like, oh, we've labeled you, so you are that because we believe, and if we believe it, therefore it be true. Now, double standards are off the charts in a system like this. Like, I mentioned this is my mother's older sister. She has one son. He's 17 years older than me. Hasn't worked a full-time job since he was 38. Sponges off of his wife. Very nice girl. Works hard at a hospital as a nurse. Been doing that for 30 years. And he has affairs, multiple affairs. Cheats on her. Brags about it. But it's some big secret. No one can ever talk about that. Like, he's allowed to say to you things he can just make up, but you're not allowed to call him on things he's actually done. Like I said, he has authority that the Prince of Wales wishes he had. And it's because his mommy said so. And all the other, narcs in the family, my other aunts and my mother, just abide by this unquestionably. I've been questioning this for 10 years. Like, why is this the way it is? Pointing out what gaslighting is, what double standards are, what, their delusions of grandeur are. Basically, the textbook signs of narcissistic personality disorder. And they just brush it off like, oh, it is what it is, can't change it. Well, yeah, you can, because as I know, and I'm sure as, people watching this video know, when you call out a narcissist and you have facts and logic, yeah, one on one, the narcissist will just get really angry and come at you. But if you do it like a group setting, like Christmas time or something, and other people around you know you're right, and the narcissist can't, I just know, logic it away, they crumble. They crumble because one of the things they fear the most is, people knowing that they're full of shit, because a lot of what they do is based on bravado and their false charismatic attitude and their delusions of grandeur that there's someone really important and have the authority and are entitled to the authority that they think they have that they gave themselves. So, another key aspect of this, unless you're an only child, is the black sheep golden child dynamic in your immediate family. And that certainly is in my case. I have a younger brother 2 years younger than me who's always been the golden child. I refer to him as the prince as a kid because he could do no wrong. I would be punished for things. He'd do the exact same thing, get away with it. And it got worse as, we got into our teen years and stuff because he got in legal troubles and all that, and my parents would bend over backwards, throw money at the situation. He'd wreck multiple cars, they'd buy him a new one. But in my case, when I was cheated out of my firefighter job at 19 years old, right before the recession and the hiring freezes kicked in, they wouldn't get me a lawyer. Why? Because the other baby boomers in the area said, "Oh, but you can't do that because then he'll get labeled as he only got in because you raised legal action. You can't do that." And this was mostly off of the advice from one of our neighbors who was a cop. And it's worth mentioning, a year after this, he retired from his police job to get his son hired. And his son was, not really qualified. Just 3 weeks before he got hired and got his daddy's job, he tried to take the state police exam, which you need at least a 70% to pass. And he didn't pass it, but somehow magically he got the highest score at his dad's little township mom and pop department, and got the job that was opening because his dad retired. Yeah, okay. So that's the dynamic you're in. And when you're in a family dynamic like this, they want you around miserable as their scapegoat. They need their whipping boy or their whipping girl. They need someone to blame all the troubles on and to constantly put down. And they'll try to tell you that if you leave the area, oh, that all areas are like this, and what's you won't be any better off anywhere else. Lies. Because not all areas are like that. In fact, it's a slow process here in America because it is still, sadly, American politics are, very much still the cult of personalities of Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton to neoliberal corporatists. But it's slowly changing because more and more, the boomers who have been in power since the 1980s are getting voted out or becoming infirm and having to retire. So their reign is coming to an end because, let's just be honest, they're getting up there in age. I mean, it's going to happen to us all, but now's their time to get up in age and, step down like they should have done 10 years ago or more. But So change is coming. So the good old boys network that has been running things, forever, they're losing more and more power because their influence is primarily still held in place by the older generation, and there's less and less of them each year, because the younger generation, starting with Generation X, are way more progressive than the boomer generation and want to see a more meritocratic system. Um, because basically, we didn't have like all the opportunity that the boomer generation did with their cronyism and their nepotism and a better economy, demand side capitalism and all that good stuff, free college or cheap college. Because all we've known for Gen X and younger, all we've known as adults anyway is Reaganism, which Clintonism is just a watered down form of. But so my advice to anybody, that can relate to this kind of system is get out. Trust your intuition. I've known since I was about 10 years old I had to get out of the area I grew up in. I knew I didn't belong. I had a handful of friends and stuff, but they all left the area too. But I'm saying, like, I knew I didn't belong in that system, in an area where everybody knows everybody's business. People in their 60s are still talking about their high school cliques. Everything revolves around, like what clique you were in high school. It's a cult. I call it Chestertology for a reason, because it's a cult. Because in this dynamic that I'm talking about, my aunt has similar authority and infallibility as a certain 5'1" man in a certain cult out in California that used some pretty freaky looking meters. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's that. There was the refusal to change. People in this area. I even led some of it back in the day, trying to change the government system to get paid firefighters and better county roads and just a better overall management of taxpayer money. But no, 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 that was shot down. And they literally said we were called childish for doing that, but the adults, the boomers literally said, well, if Chester County does it this way, then it's by definition the best. I'm like, but there's the specifics of the policies. No, no, no. If it's done here, it's by definition the best. But that's not tribalism or childish. Again, another important point in a dynamic like this is you're not allowed to be right. No matter how many times, especially if you're an intuitive, you predict something and it turns out to be true, as it usually is for us 85% of the time. It's a little freaky, but it doesn't matter how good your streak is of predicting things to be right. They will never believe you. They will never take your word for it, and they'll continue to just keep going in the same circle because systems like this are cults of status quo. They're cults of status quo because the way the status quo is in a system like this, it's rigged in their favor, and it's rigged against other people. And they know, though they'll never admit it deep down, that they wouldn't be able to function without everything exactly how it is. People that defend, like the Good Old Boys Network, know that if they had to stand on their own merit, they wouldn't be able to do it. They need that system to have everything they have. And in order to keep them at the top, they have to keep other people down. And that's similar in a narcissistic system as well. So a good old boy system is just like a narcissistic system in that, in order to keep some people at the top, at the pinnacle, they have to keep other people down in order to do so. And that's true in neoliberal politics too, rigging things in favor of the rich and corporations in order to keep the poor poor, in order so they can't do anything to change the system and keep money in politics too. I didn't really want to get as political as I did in this video, but just give a little disclaimer since I'm going there. Um, yeah, I know there's some people who watch these videos that are definitely on the right side. That's fine. Here's my message to anybody who's in the politics. I'm not going to get too deep into my beliefs. If you want to see what I believe out of curiosity, basically watch Kyle Kalinske or Jim Dore. I'm pretty in line with them. But, what I'm mostly against is the establishment. So anybody watching this who's like more like right leaning, like libertarianish, like Rand Paul, wing of the GOP, or actual libertarians, guys, we agree on about half of things, and before we, tear each other apart over what we don't agree with, we need to, come together and fight the establishment, the neocons and the neolibs on the stuff we do agree with, like ending the wars, ending the drug war, things like that. So, for some battles, libertarians and progressives have to admit that they have to form an alliance and basically, make the battle anti-establishment versus establishment, and then we can compromise and go from there. Like there's actually some decent compromise positions between like the progressive wing of the Democratic Party and the libertarian wing of the Republican Party, and there's ways to marry those ideas together in a compromise. Ross Perot was pretty good at it back in the day, and you can his old videos from '92 are on YouTube, and that was like a common sense conservative in my mind, because he basically said, hey, outsourcing is bad, and voodoo economics doesn't work, and that's right there is the crux of the neocons and the neolibs house of cards economy of corporatism. All right, that was a fun little disclaimer. So we're gonna get back to the narcissistic system. Another thing with golden, when you're dealing with a golden child, as frustrating as you have to understand that, like, in a way, they were abused too. Like my brother, he's in his early 30s, but he's basically 12. Like he can't take care of himself. Mommy still does his laundry. He's never had a full-time job. Mommy helps him pay his gambling debts. He's living in a fantasy world where his delusions of grandeur make him think that he's this big shot mobster, that he's this big shot real estate mogul, that he's still like a teenager, and that will never change. Like the narcissist will protect their golden child's delusions at all costs, even if it costs them financially, even if they have to commit illegal things like basically having a bunch of people doing drugs hanging out in their house, because to them that's the status quo that they want to preserve. It's twisted and it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't matter how much you call them out on it or say what they're doing is illegal or point out how it's going to end poorly, or even after it ends poorly. You're not going to change them. The narcissist and the narcissistic system is not going to change ever. Ever. Doesn't matter how much facts and logic you have. The best you can do with logic is trip them up in a setting where there's like a family gathering or something, and make everybody see them for what they really are, and that does you good. It gives you that validation of, hey, it's not me, like look at what a jackass this person is. But it's never going to be anything lasting to change the system as it is. You're not going to break the narcissistic wheel. At least I don't know how. I've never heard of anyone who's successfully done it, but if you have, comment. Yeah, I'd like to hear that story. um, so that's about it. Don't be afraid about leaving an area. If your intuition tells you that you'll be fine in an area on your own, you will be. Trust me. You know, I easily made, a bunch of new friends in the different places I've moved over the years. And, I'm an INFJ, so I'm an introvert, and that doesn't come easy for us. So if you're an extrovert, trust me, you'll be fine. Like I said, the narcissist just wants you to kick around, and they want to keep you down. They love seeing you miserable, like you being stuck in an area you hate, working a job you hate that doesn't pay shitty money, like me as an assistant golf course superintendent. That got them off. They got off on that more than well, never mind. But, you know, yeah, that is like the ultimate like turn on for them. That's their narcissistic supply. That's what they live for. That's like a high to them. So you have to know that and recognize it and realize that, yeah, I'll be fine when I leave. Because again, if your intuition is telling you that, don't forget how often your intuition is right. And don't forget what's happened to you in your past when you haven't listened to your intuition and how bad it's gone. I can tell you from experience it usually doesn't go well. So if you're stuck in a narcissistic family, especially an extended family and in a narcissistic town, realize that things are never going to get better. I understand there's situations where, there's times where you can't leave. What you can do in the meantime is, I'd suggest looking up and mastering the gray rock method. Uh, with extended family, learn how to go low contact and start forming a plan. Form a plan of where you want to go, what you want to do, so when that plan does become viable to you, you have it planned and you can execute it, right from the beginning. So you don't have to sit around and waste extra time in planning on where you're going to go, what kind of job you're going to look for, that kind of thing. Excuse me, because it's never going to get any better. The only change you can do is get out. And believe me, it'll become so clear after you've left for a month or two and you're not a part of that system anymore and you're meeting new people, like you'll just be amazed at just how right you were about your family being messed up and that area being messed up and enabling to them. Because think about it, if you're going to stay in the same area as your narc family, then you're going to be in their area, in their system with their flying monkeys, their enablers, and they're going to have easy access on you. And especially if it's not like a city, if it's in a suburb or something, there's always going to be somebody that your parents know, like seeing you at this place in town and that place in town, and reporting back. And then you get the phone calls and what were you doing here, and the nosy this and nosy that. So just get out. Well, find an area you like, where with a good job market, and get out. After my lawsuit's settled, I'm leaving further because a couple states away isn't doing it for me, and I'm probably going to be blackballed in my emergency services union after the rebellion that me and a bunch of others who face bullying and hazing are going to start. But hey, I think there's always Ireland and the UK. It's a lot better. It's a lot further. So that's basically it for now. I'm gonna try to do some more videos on INFJ, ENFJ stuff, some narcissism videos, and like I said, I'm probably gonna be on the media in the near future, and I'll post those videos to this channel when they get done, and then I'll be able to discuss my situation of what's going on, in my life once it's out in the open. So thanks everybody for listening. Please comment below if there's anything I talked about you want me to go into more detail in, topics you want to suggest, and I'll see you next time.